So my paper is about how illicit financial flows are a bane to development in Africa, with Ghana in focus. The key issues there are looking at how illicit financial flows affect development in Africa, particularly the loss of revenue, which affects how African governments are able to provide needed essential resources for the masses. It also looks at making policy recommendations, especially in the context of Ghana, where we have a new dispensation which is advocating for an Africa beyond aid. That is more like a new paradigm. Africa has been very dependent on aid all these years, and in as much as African governments have done their very best to the best of their ability with the resources they have, it's about time, and it's high time Africa starts thinking of looking at domestic resources as opposed to official or overseas development assistance. So my paper basically is trying to juxtapose Ghana beyond aid with illicit financial flows to see if that is a possible or a viable option in the near future. So the main findings from this paper are that irrespective of the several instruments available at the international level, irrespective of national structures, irrespective of policies in place, illicit financial flows are still happening on such a very large scale. And this is hampering development efforts in Africa, including Ghana. So the main takeaway points from this paper is that the international community needs to do more. Particularly African governments need to take their destinies into their own hands, change the structures, put in more political will, prosecute offenders where public officials have been found culpable, because that's one of the major challenges we see across Africa. We are able to do investigations, find people who have misappropriated public funds, but that's as far as the issues go. And so long as these issues continue, there's no way the continent can depend on its own resources. We also want to call on the international community to do more, the OECD, the G20, other international organizations to help curb illicit financial flows, and finally for civil society to continue making positive noise to get international community, governments and all to work on illicit financial flows, which according to this paper, the main finding is that it is one of the major bane of development in Africa. It's important to further explore what the new policy implications of IFFs are in Africa. This topic isn't new. Lots of academic publications, civil society, government publications have espoused the topic, but it's still a challenge on the African continent. It's very important that we discuss further, very important that we explore and research further, particularly juxtaposing it against African countries becoming more sustainable, more confident, and more in charge of the kind of development outcomes they would want to create for their population. It's very important that we find out new information, very important that we find new ways of emerging, new networks and new ways emerging by which multinational companies and by which even local industry evade and avoid taxes, which deprive African countries, including Ghana, of much needed resources, which would have made life much more enjoyable and dignified for the people and the population.